Welcome to Pub Natter, where we record each episode in a different pub in Rutland, the smallest county in England. In each episode, your hosts, Tim and Justin, give a voice to the landlords and landladies and a special guest with a specific area of interest or expertise. We hope you enjoy our chats, and it encourages you to go and explore our little county and all it has to offer. Like the motto says, there is much in little.
When rain stops play, it's time for some pub natter.
This episode, which is part 3 of 3 featuring Henry Winter, was recorded a couple of months ago at the Railway Inn, Ketton, Rutland. We discuss Hillsborough, Twitter, policing football, the dentist chair incident, gay footballers, trophy predictions, the Euros, living in Rutland, Harrison and Dunn, and Lou Macari. Justin kicks us off with a question for Henry.
So it's probably a too difficult a question, but it's a bit like, what's your favourite record, what's your favourite film, and it changes with your mood, especially over doing it for nearly 40 years. But what's the hardest thing you've ever had to report on? And I suspect I know the answer to that. And what's the most, I don't know, uplifting or rewarding or joyous event that you've ever reported
Probably the
on?
most humbling is getting to know some of the Hillsborough families and writing about their continued fight for justice, and just talking to them and hearing their stories and knowing that they were going to go home after we'd spoken or go upstairs and there would be a child's bedroom untouched from the moment they left on that sunny morning in 89 to go across the Pennines to watch a football match. That is, the resilience of the Hillsborough families is consistently, eternally humbling, and an absolute shame on elements of my industry, and also certainly of the South Yorkshire Police and the establishment in London.
I mean, the Sun is the one that's mentioned, but there were others, weren't there, who took that view?
Yeah, and it was, and me, and I was thinking at the time, I was writing at the time, I wasn't particularly well established. I was, 3-4 years in at the Independent, and I look back, if I'd had a column, would I have been more strident in my support of the Liverpool fans? I think it's so different now with social media, because you get an instant, they used to say that journalism is the first draft of history. My part of journalism, print journalism, is the second draft of history, because the first draft of history is social media, it's Twitter. I mean, I'm quite big on Twitter, and I do a lot of stuff on Twitter.
Do you know how many followers you got?
Oh, it's about 1 million.
1.3 million.
Right, okay. Well,
You need to give Pub Natter a shout out.
I will do, yeah.
Twitter feed.
Yeah,
I think I've got 17.
I think some of the Russian bots. I actually got trolled by the Russian embassy heading into the World Cup in 2018. That was funny.
You've got something in common with Alicia Kearns then.
Yeah. Did she get trolled by the Russians?
No, Lavrov tried to keep her out of a meeting in Geneva for
Really?
a whole week
Yeah.
because he was convinced that she was a spy.
Really? Wow. Rutland, the sort of nest of James Bonds. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. We could have our meetings here.
I did ask her, and she said she denied it.
Yeah.
That she was a spy.
Yes, of course.
I think legally, from a newspaper perspective, we're not allowed to ask anyone if they're a spy. I think they are quite serious. It's quite interesting on social media. There are things people can say on social media which I can't for legal reasons. You have to sort of reflect that. So I try to be vaguely well behaved. But I make mistakes on Twitter, and I made one about 6-7 years ago. I lost a bet with Newcastle fans. I said that if Mike Ashley ever backs his manager, I said he'll never back his manager. He's just not the type. Mike Ashley was the owner then. And if he does, I'll swim the Tyne. I didn't think anything of it. And then I was just sort of scrolling through my mentions about a week later, and it was all Hashtag posh twat's going to drown. Hashtag get your speedos on. Hashtag swim the Tyne. And I actually, so I had to. I thought, well, I got to do this. I did this with Bobby Robson Foundation. I had to swim the Tyne.
Well, there's a gentleman.
Which is one of the world's greatest men, and that's why I wanted to do it, to sort of, help his, the amazing work that he's raised, 10, 11 million pounds even after his death for cancer research. And
sorry, there's an example of. We all look back at Bobby Robson and the 1990 World Cup and what he did at Newcastle afterwards and the work at Ipswich and everything. But there was a spell. Go in the name of Allah, go. I can recall.
Absolutely.
1-1 draw
Saudi
with
game,
Saudi or something. And
Tunisia, wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah.
No, Tunisia was a different day. But
Was it?
But before that World Cup and for the first cup, because we lost. Did we lose to Portugal 1-0 first game, 1990?
1990, they were all draws, I think, weren't they?
But
and then they won the
they beat
Republic of
Poland.
the Irish one. One of the German headlines was "No football police, we're British," because it was an absolute shocker. And those games in Cagliari and the fans were rioting. That's one nice thing about England now, or one of the many nice things. You don't have to write with tear gas in your eyes. I've been tear gassed. But I've been tear gassed twice by the French police. Actually, once in Marseille when England fans rioted there, and then once before the Champions League final when the French police are just absolutely hopeless. They're aggressive, they're naive, they don't know how to hold. Good luck with the Olympics if you're going out there. They were just tear gassing Liverpool fans, waiting patiently, to get into the Champions League final against Real Madrid at Stade de France. It was absolutely shocking. And I went out there and I thought, I know I can write this piece quickly and I can miss the first 20 minutes of the game. And I went out there and actually just to take some water to them, because just little things like that, they were just in a queue. It was hot. Some of them didn't have their meds. They didn't have water. And then, so I got up, me and other people got tear gas just going over for that. But yeah, coming back to your point, Bobby Robson through that era, he was a huge patriot. And yet he would just look at some of the England fans roaring the team on and then going trashing a town square.
Yeah.
But also the press were. They didn't want him to lead us into that World Cup. They wanted him gone.
There was a brutal circulation war going on then.
Was it?
On the tabloids, particularly the Mirror and the Sun. Yeah, and I remember I covered that World Cup. But I wasn't doing England. But you just knew when you went to an England press conference then, they were all the sort of big beasts of Fleet Street, and they were just wanting to. Yeah, sometimes they want a little bit of blood in their ink on the back page.
Yeah.
Could any other manager have managed Paul Gascoigne?
Terry Venables?
Maybe, yeah.
I can tell you a story about Terry Venables, because again, he was somebody that was given. He had a checkered reputation, shall we say. When I was at school, he came to the schools in our area, primary school.
West London, presumably.
West London, yeah. He would have been about 71, 72 at a guess. And he came, I think he was playing for QPR, or might have been Chelsea at the time. But he came with a blind lady and was touring the schools trying to raise money and awareness about for blind people. Mm-hmm. Which nobody ever told you about. There was always the stories about him being, a little bit dodgy here and there. But that's always stuck with me, because during the time when he was, a manager with Barcelona and Spurs and England, and there was always an undercurrent of people trying to undermine him and find the darker side of him. But there's that part of his character.
Terry was very loyal to friends who maybe one shouldn't have been totally loyal to. But but that was one of his great traits. He did have this loyalty. Brilliant
like
company. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, Frank Sinatra. I mean, Terry Venables would love that comparison. I mean, he sang with the Joe Loss Orchestra, went on stage and sang, fantastic voice. I went down to his club Scribes a couple of times in South Ken in London, and he was always sort of singing there, and there were a few lively characters in there. But just one of the great managers, and it was a pity he didn't stay on after Euro '96, because that was a fantastic squad, and he had the man management which Glenn Hoddle just didn't really have, even though Glenn was a good coach in many ways.
Yeah, I remember when we beat Scotland under Venables, And it was a real spanking.
It was
Wasn't
my eldest son's 4th birthday.
it?
Because everybody else was having a barbecue in the garden in honour of his 4th birthday, and I was sitting in front of the telly.
Gascoigne's goal.
Gascoigne's goal.
Yeah.
And the dentist chair celebration.
That
of
was
course.
funny because I was out in Hong Kong for that, and obviously we'd had a go at the players for. Well, here's a story of that night.
What was the year? What was that year?
96.
Yeah,
Nice.
so England had gone out on tour. Only England and the Terry Venables could prepare for a tournament against European teams at home by going off to China to play China, and then a rather bizarre Hong Kong select 11. And we'd arranged with the players, so Terry Venables had given them the last night out before they flew back, and we'd arranged with the players that they would go into one bar and we would go into our bar, the press bar, and we wouldn't really sort of cross paths. Until one of the players did actually stumble, I think is probably the best way, into our bar. And I had to buy him a drink and I had to buy him a shirt because his shirt was ripped, which I probably should have realised was a slight indication of what had happened in the Jump Club, which was their bar. Anyway, he landed back in UK and all the pictures were out of the dentist chair. So, I mean, collective bonding. I just thought that they're decent. They are allowed to let off steam. But anyway, I'd had a bit of a go at them. All the press had a bit of a go at them, and I think the front page with the mirrors. The 23 pictures of or mugshots of all the players. You've let your country down, even before the ball had been kicked. So when they had the Scotland game. And having drawn the first game and then the Scotland game, and they turned on the press. And I was looking around the press box at the old Wembley, and a few people were a bit upset that they were obviously taking the piss out of the players, were taking the piss out of us with that celebration. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. It was an iconic celebration, very funny. And look, as a journalist, if you dish it out, you've got to take it.
Absolutely. So, again, hard question. What's the most enjoyable thing you've ever reported? The most uplifting thing, I guess.
I hope it'll be this summer when Harry Kane goes and wins lifts the
Ballon d'Or. No, it's not the Ballon d'Or in the Euros, is it?
No. If he wins if it gets the European Championship final trophy, I mean that would just be wonderful. I mean, just mad moments like Istanbul 2005. It's just such an easy game to write about because it's absolute chaos, and all you're doing is holding up a mirror to the drama. And that was the Liverpool one, and I always got on with Stephen Gerrard, and subsequently I wrote his book with him, and just seeing someone like that play like that with that energy, and having been to so many European finals when English teams hadn't done well, and you just thought, God, the Premier League isn't perhaps the greatest league, and just to see people you like deliver, I think that's always good.
Yeah. Okay. There's just one other thing I'd like to ask you, specifically, and I'm puzzled by it. In the female game, there are lots and lots of gay female footballers, and it's so commonplace. It's not even remarked upon. Nobody cares. It's just not an issue. In fact, the biggest issue has been recently that one of the coaches is concerned about players having relationships within the team because of the dynamic.
Yeah.
But the fact that there are gay lady footballers is not an issue. I can think of 2 or 3 professional male footballers who've come out, and that there must statistically be many, many more.
Yeah.
Why?
I think it's the dressing room.
Society has, has accepted all this.
Absolutely. I don't think it's the fans. I don't think it's the media. I mean, I've talked to one gay player, and there's no issue with the media. The media will be supportive, whereas I think 10, 15 years ago it wouldn't have been. The fans, I think, will be supportive. There'll be a few comments, but I just don't think it would be an issue.
No, nowadays it wouldn't.
I don't think nowadays.
Did you see Ted Lasso? Did you see that series?
Yeah.
They handled that really well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. But I think the issue is in the dressing room, and one of the gay players that I know he's gay, and he just said it's the dressing room, it's the reaction in the dressing room. But then within a year everyone will be going, well, who cares? But just coming back to the point, and this was one that Emma Hayes was making about the number of relationships. Her concern was coach to player relationship, and if you have there has to be a slight duty of care if you are the coach and you are picking the team, and particularly if it's a younger player, I think that is a no-no. But player to player, gay relationships in football, women's football is, as you say, it's just part of life.
So let's finish on predictions
Oh dear,
for the year,
terrible.
for this year. So who's going to win the FA Cup, the league, Premiership, and the Championship, and the Euros?
So I've stuck with Manchester City for the league, so I'll stick with them. For the FA Cup, I love it. It was Coventry.
Ah, wouldn't we?
Wouldn't we all?
I remember '87 just seems like yesterday with Keith Houchin's diving header and
Gary
own
Mabbott scored at
goals.
both ends, didn't he?
Yeah, Gary Mabbott's knee became a Coventry fanzine title. It
All
was
Hatters
so
have got a soft
legendary.
spot for Coventry as well.
Why? Just
Beating them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Coventry
yeah,
were another club that deserved a bit of fortune.
yeah.
I remember you bumping into a Coventry fan at a Roger Waters gig, and you just in the interval, and you just stood there commiserating with each other. Well, I was gloating
Yeah,
because QPR were on the up and up in those days.
but just on that game last year, I mean, I went to see Casey Palmer at Coventry City, and he said for the first few weeks of the season, whenever he saw Luton Town on Sky Sports News or on the game or on Match of the Day, thinking, that could have been us. But that's the joy of football. You do get another chance. FA Cup, I'd again go. Was it City, Chelsea, and the other one?
United.
Yeah, it was United Coventry, isn't it?
Mm.
So probably goes City again.
So City for the double.
Yeah.
Treble?
Champions League. Yeah, I think they will. They'll probably get Arsenal in the semi. If Arsenal get past Bayern, Harry Kane will be absolutely loving that. Eric Dyer will be loving that as well. Eric's playing really well at the moment.
I don't see Arsenal getting past Bayern.
No, I don't. Everyone's been a bit snooty about Bayern, but they're beginning to.
Look at their
pick up
record.
gear. Yeah, exactly. Thomas Muller will be out there. Manuel Neuer is back fully fit now after his skiing accident. So, yeah, I might go United for the Cup and City for the Champions League.
And then the big one in the summer.
I'm one of Southgate's few critics as a tactician. I just think he's changed the culture, but just there's certain moments, and all the other guys have a go at me saying, "Oh, you're Southgate out." I'm not Southgate out. I just want him to seize moments at key games. Croatia, the semi-final in 2018, the final with Mancini, in 2020-21 for the Euros, just sort of outwitted him. He'd made his changes quicker when England were ahead and Italy got back into it, and then obviously won on penalties. And then, last time France were just so good. Portugal, if I was a betting man, I'd put money on Portugal, but France are so good. They've got two players in every position.
I
They're
thought France
just-
were very lucky to beat England in that game.
Possibly. Kane missed the penalty.
I've got a theory about that. I'm convinced that because he knew the goalkeeper, he'd already taken one and scored it, and he knew the goalkeeper, and I think in his head he forgot that it was in the game and it wasn't a shootout, and he wanted to hit it high because he was concerned that Lloris would go the right way.
Yeah.
And I think he forgot it because obviously in a normal game, the last thing you want to do is hit it over the bar. If you hit the keeper and it comes out, you've still got a chance of the rebound. And I think he just forgot, almost got his head into a shootout mode, and that's why he missed it.
Yeah, it was frustrating.
Oh,
But look, France are outstanding. I think it's between England and France.
I think, is it possible, the way that it's set up, that it could be an England-Germany final? I can't remember the groups.
Well, that would be rather nice, and there would certainly be a bit of symmetry for Southgate, particularly if England won that on penalties after what happened for him in '96.
Because we always...
I just think if you look at this squad, it's such an outstanding squad, the England players. You look at Jude Bellingham as the top scorer in Spain. You look at Harry Kane, top scorer in Germany. You look at three of the top scorers of the six in the Premier League are in the squad. So it's, you've got Declan Rice playing outstandingly. Bukayo Saka's injured at the moment, but what a player he is on the right. Centre halves, one or two issues. Left backs a concern. Pickford's a decent goalkeeper. I can see him taking a penalty if needed. Kyle Walker, probably the best right back in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
And Trippier can play either side. So I haven't mentioned too many Luton players in
Ross Barkley.
Foden, a game changer.
I mean, Ross, I went to interview Ross early in the season because he's just such an interesting character. And I said, come on, you must be thinking the way you're playing of England. And he just thinks, well, I'm possibly a little bit too old to get back into it now.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
I tell you what, on form, you'd have him in because he's been outstanding.
Yeah.
Foden, game changer.
Oh, Foden. I mean, how can I forget Foden? I mean, he's 23 and he's already won the title 5 times. And he is truly world class.
Yeah.
But whether you play him in that central three with Bellingham and Rice, who obviously start there, or be interesting to see how Kobbie Mainoo sort of develops, or whether you play Foden in Rashford's position on the left with Kane and Saka.
The thing is,
at least England got options.
Once you're into the knockout stages, a lot of those games are going to be way longer than 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're going to need way more than 11 players.
Plus, also, it's smaller squads than the last 2 tournaments.
Yeah.
It's 23 rather than 26. So,
Yeah.
but England have definitely got a chance. I just hope, touch wood, there are no more injuries.
It's the first time that I can remember we haven't had this kind of talismanic player that, if Rooney gets injured, if Beckham gets injured, if
Kane will be a concern.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I still think there are
Kane's
other goal
irreplaceable.
scorers, but Kane is special because
He's the one,
he's
yeah.
2 players in one.
He's also a better player now than he was a year ago. I mean,
Yeah.
if you just see him now, if you talk to him now, you go, it's a different. I talked to him the other day, and I was just saying, you're different now. And he said, in what way? And I said, that you feel you belong at this level, this elite level, this Champions League level. You're not Spurs with respect to Spurs. Spurs always, not amongst the all-surrounders, a bit patronising because they've been to a Champions League final, but they're not a super club like a Bayern.
No, that'll give him a lot of confidence. Playing for somebody like Bayern
Definitely.
Munich.
And you go in, I mean, I went to see the second leg against Lazio. You go into that ground and I grew up partly in Munich and I went to the old stadium and watched Bayern, so I'm quite fond of the club.
You weren't watching the right club then. You should have been watching Arsene and Sexy.
They're amazing. but going to an 1860 game is like going to a status quo gig. They're all there with their sort of, their beer mat sort of coats on. But good proper club. But Kane is just, he walks out into the Allianz, probably one of the greatest arenas in the world, and the noise is all around. You can just see him. He's like a gladiator. He just knows he's that level.
Yeah. Well, will you be in Germany? Presumably you will be.
100%, absolutely.
Because I was going to say, wouldn't it be great if you could...
I'll be coming back to the railway at every opportunity.
Well, I was going to say, wouldn't it be great to come back here and reflect on the...
it's coming home.
The post...
How confident are you? How confident are you that the fans can behave?
Not confident, sadly.
In Germany.
Talking to the police.
I'm confident in Germany. No, I'm confident that nothing will happen in Germany because the police will be on it.
The police are the best. The German police, along with the UK police, are the best at policing football events, partly through experience, painful experience. But the police out there are brilliant because they know when to get involved. They don't go in heavy-handed like the Spanish, the Italian, or the French police. God, they're so naive. The German police are good, but unfortunately, we have a slightly new phenomenon in football. We've got 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who are coked up, and they come along for the ride.
We
and
saw
it's
that
easy to get out there.
the Euro 21 or 20 final.
The final was just the amount of cocaine that was on Wembley Way, Olympic Way beforehand was just shocking. But if England win, there'll be trouble in the UK. There'll be trouble on the streets here, the way
to be honest,
people celebrate.
We went to that game, and the biggest disappointment to me wasn't that we lost. It was I wanted to have all my life. I've wanted to see England in a final or win something, and I wanted to have a great day out. And I'm a massive Italophile. I speak some Italian. I go to Italy a lot, so I wanted to mingle with the Italian fans and chat and have a lot and just have a great day out, win or lose. And I was denied the great day out because of the way that our lot behaved. And we found our seats. and we went out to get a beer in the concourse. And as we walked down the steps into the concourse, we saw some guy on his hands and knees getting
Kicked in the head.
getting lumps kicked out of
Really?
him.
Yeah.
We had no idea why. He managed to get up and run. The next day, we realised that it was obviously somebody that had broken in without a ticket, and then the people that had tickets had taken it upon themselves to be
Oh,
judge,
right.
jury, and executioner.
Because he was in their seats.
No, because it was in the concourse, but they'd obviously
Right.
seen him come in through
Oh,
one of
right.
the...
So
Because what they were doing was coming through the turnstiles
Yeah.
and then running around and opening the
Opening
disabled
it.
exit,
Yeah, yeah.
and then people were pouring in through the disabled
Yeah.
exit. But then people just took it upon themselves to be the police. It was a horrible experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. And
Well,
I've
the
never
fa-
been to an England game since, and
the-
I probably won't.
The families were in the middle of it. You know,
Yeah.
Harry Maguire's dad got stamped on. I mean, it was quite,
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I think it was Harry's dad. Yeah. So, I mean, unfortunately, football sport is the best of mankind and the worst.
Yeah. We need to finish this podcast on a happy note.
We're in the well way. It's always happy.
So we'll do the beginning last. How did you come from North London to Rutland?
Oh wow. I like the pub. Why did we?
Yeah, good reason.
We got a flat in London, which we didn't actually use that much because I always like
Good schools.
great schools. The kids went to Oundle, both loved it. We wanted to be within striking distance of a really good co-ed boarding school so we could go and watch them play sport. So like 20 minutes away to Oundle. But Oakham's a brilliant school. Uppingham's a brilliant school. Stanford, I mean, we are absolutely blessed. But ultimately I moved here because of the pub. Because the pub, and also, so it's my favourite pub in the world, but it's got my favourite shop in the world in Stamford, Harrison and Dunn.
Big shout out. Go on, say it again.
Harrison and Dunn. I mean, I've said I got asked on the BBC once. You know, where's your favourite? Yeah, I think it was what's your favourite part of the town where you live? And I just go Harrison and Dunn. Anyone who's been, you know, all your listeners who've been through Harrison and Dunn will just know it's a special place because of their knowledge. I mean, I will go in there just needing a couple of sort of AAA batteries and come out with a sort of, you know, bath rug or a sort of a, I don't know, bits for
You're
the fire
talking to a
or
man
whatever.
that got a Dremel for his 61st birthday and was so excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely place to live. It's really beautiful for my job, and I always like getting home after a game. So if I'm at Newcastle, there are like 2 traffic lights between here and St James's Park, straight down the A1, 70 miles all the way, apart from in the roadworks, 50 miles, and then Liverpool. So I can get pretty much everywhere. And
Yeah.
the Peterborough train service is brilliant. If
Yeah.
you live on the west side of the country, trains tricky. East Coast. Even, as they call it, as I was informed by one of the members of staff on the train, the 2333, which is the last fast train out of King's Cross to Peterborough, which is dubbed the Vomit Comet.
We've been on that a few times.
Yeah,
haven't we, over the
with
years?
good reason. A lot of football fans on that as well. So it's quite a sort of happy mix.
My
But-
eldest son got christened Arctic on that train.
Yeah.
We took my lad and his mate to the Ginger Sven game, the
Right.
McLaren's last game,
Yeah.
and I'd pre-booked seats at a table, and amazingly, because I'm a bit odd sometimes, this place was absolutely rammed with football fans. But because I had my ticket, my seat reservation,
Yeah.
I decided, all 5'3" of me, that I was going to demand that the
Quite
people
right.
that had got my seat and they all did.
Brilliant.
They all got up and left, and the 4 of us had our seats, unbelievably.
Yeah.
And there was this youngish guy from Leeds, because that's where the train terminates, and he was just one of these characters. He was just a really funny guy, and some poor bloke, dressed in like a tweed jacket and a tie and everything, was trying to do the Times crossword, standing
Yeah.
up in the aisle. And he's the only bloke on the train that hadn't come from Wembley.
Yeah.
And this lad was absolutely ripping him to bits, and he's going, here, he says, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing a crossword. He said, oh, well, come on, we'll help you. And he's reading out some of the clues. And then he asked
Were
my
they getting
son,
the words, or were they just throwing random words back in?
No, my son had long hair at the time. And he's gone, did you enjoy the game? He went, oh, it was all right. Yeah. You've got to take him to the football match. You've got to see Wembley, you've got to see England. He said, no, what you say is all right. He said, who are you anyway? Arctic Monkeys. And then that was it. And he ended up getting christened Arctic.
Brilliant.
And then when they read out one of the crossword clues, I got it. And he went, bloody hell, he says, we got a genius on the boat. Genius on the boat.
Brilliant.
He said, who are you? I said, oh, I'm his dad. bloody hell, he's got Arctic and his dad.
Yeah,
His dad's, it was a hilarious journey home.
Yeah.
Absolutely hilarious.
It's quite a train. It's quite a train. But it's just I do a lot of running. So Rutland Water,
Aren't you doing a marathon?
I
Little
am.
birdie told me this
Yeah,
year.
my-
The London Marathon.
yeah, 8th and last. I'm not doing any more. But I did. It's absolutely in COVID. They did this virtual London Marathon, and you could just run wherever you were in the world, and it was a great idea. And it paced you by, you had to have your phone and the app on the phone, and it told you how many miles you done. And every mile you went, Paula Radcliffe's voice piped up, "Well done, you're at mile 5 or whatever." So I ran from here round Rutland Water and back, and I thought, this is going to be really lonely and boring. I saw about 50, 60 other people with their numbers on, and it was just, I think, it made me even more proud of, I wasn't born here, but it made me even more proud of Rutland. Rutland Water is one of the most beautiful parts of the country. Early in the morning, you go. I know, I don't say that. I mean, the Ospreys, the pubs around it, the water park. You can out there. There's a beach there now. All they need is some snow, and it's just a perfect holiday location. It's got everything. So it's the villages, it's the people, it's the pubs like this, it's the great shops in Stamford. Stamford is just so beautiful. Good non-league team as well, the Zico Arena. They've got they've really well-run club with a thriving sort of kids set up alongside it as well. So what's not to like?
What's not to like? Do you know Jon Snow got his tyres in Stamford, shop in Stamford?
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
His ties?
His tie. He was famous for his tyres, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I thought you meant Jon Snow from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm talking to a journalist.
Yeah. Is that right? Oh. Which shop?
I don't know.
I bet Harrison Dunn do them upstairs. They better have a tie collection
Probably.
there. Yeah, there's a really good men's shop, Colin Bell, who I always went into because I thought it was something to do with the famous footballer of Manchester City in England, Nijinsky. But good shops.
I saw
good
him play
people.
for England against Czechoslovakia.
Really?
Yeah, my dad took me.
What a player.
I was at the Charity Shield match where Billy Bremner and Kevin Keegan had a fight.
That great picture. Yeah.
What was your first match? First football match?
First football match would have been Norwich against Aston Villa, 5-3. And whenever my sister...
How old were you
my
then?
sister, I was like, 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And we had a cottage on the coast in Norfolk, and my parents took me in there. Well, my
Norwich.
dad took me in there, Norwich. And whenever I see my sister, she goes, "Were there 8 goals? Was it 5-3?" Because she's basically seen one match and it finished 5-3, and she said, "Why were these people jumping up? This is another goal." It's not always like that.
What was your
So-
first match?
I can't remember. I think the first professional football match I ever went to was Manchester United against West Ham, 1972, Lou Macari's debut, and I can say that I saw Best play at Old Trafford, but it was Clyde.
Brilliant. But there's another thing, finally, before we go, on an extraordinarily uplifting note. You mentioned Lou Macari. Lou Macari now is running this homeless centre in Stoke. So I went to see him about sort of 5-6 months ago, and he took me around and introduced me to some of the homeless people who he'd taken off the streets, and you just think, what a life you've had, Lou Macari. You're having, Celtic, Manchester United, Scotland, absolute legends, and sprinkled stardust wherever he played. And now look at him, just helping just these disadvantaged people, putting them, whether their marriages are broken down, whether there have been issues at work, whatever, they have found themselves homeless. And there was Lou Macari with all he's achieved in life, was just sort of taking them off the streets and giving them a room and just giving them a key, getting them a suit so they could go to just try and get a job somewhere. And you just think, wow, it makes me feel even more privileged and humbled to be working in a sport like football.
I think that's a great time to
Brilliant way to end it. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very much.
inviting me.
That was awesome.
That's been really, really
Yeah.
interesting.
Thank you very much.
And it's in the railway. You can't beat it for location.
So that's a wrap. And thank you for listening to our latest Pub Natter. If you visit timothyives.com/pubnatter, you will find photos, links, and more information about each episode. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and please subscribe to ensure you don't miss a pub or one of our amazing guests. The Pub Natter theme tune is by Tom Arnold. That was a Pub Natter broadcast.